For almost 2 years after Pearl Harbor, American submarine skippers returned from patrols with their hands empty and their consciences scarred, their reports filled with frustration and disbelief. They had done everything by the book. They had stalked their targets for hours, sometimes days, closing in silently, aligning angles to the degree, counting seconds, then releasing their torpedoes at the perfect moment. And yet, when the metal fish met its prey, nothing happened. The explosion they expected never came. Instead, there was silence, or sometimes a dull, mocking thud, a torpedo striking a hull and failing to explode. For many, that sound became a symbol of betrayal. A weapon that had cost millions, that had been trusted to defend the nation, had become a liability. Worse, it was killing morale faster than it was killing the enemy. The Bureau of Ordnance, responsible for the Navy's weaponry, refused to believe the complaints. Their message to the submarine force was simple. It's not the torpedoes, it's you. The Bureau blamed bad aim, poor maintenance, and even cowardice, yet beneath the ocean's surface, crews risked their lives daily in steel coffins, only to discover that their own technology had turned against them. The Mark 14 torpedo, the pride of American engineering, was proving itself the most dangerous weapon ever built, but only to those who used it. The Mark 14 was conceived in the interwar years when the Navy believed the next war would be fought by large fleets at sea, not by hidden boats in the depths. Its creators at the Newport Torpedo Station envisioned a masterpiece, a weapon so advanced it could destroy ships without even touching them. It used the revolutionary Mark 6 exploder, which combined two mechanisms: a contact detonator that exploded on impact, and a magnetic detonator designed to sense a ship's magnetic field and explode beneath the keel, where the shockwave would break the vessel's spine. In theory, it was perfect. In practice, it was a catastrophe. From the first months of 1942, submarine patrols from Australia to Midway reported the same grim pattern: torpedoes running too deep, exploding prematurely, or not exploding at all. In some cases, they circled back and sank the submarines that had fired them. Boats like the USS Tullabee and later the USS Tang would meet their ends because of the very weapon they trusted. Each failure report was met with disbelief from the Bureau. Each skipper who complained was quietly labelled incompetent. But in the dark, claustrophobic quarters of a submarine, where the smell of diesel and sweat mixed with fear, the crews knew something was deeply wrong. When a weapon fails, it's not just a technical problem, it's a moral one. Every dud torpedo meant lives lost unnecessarily. Merchant ships carrying vital Japanese oil and steel escaped unscathed, prolonging the war. Submariners risked depth charges and patrol planes for nothing. Some boats went entire patrols without a single successful strike. The shame, the anger, the despair. It built into something dangerous, quiet rebellion. Among those who refused to accept excuses was Rear Admiral Charles Lockwood. In 1942, he took command of the submarine fleet in the Southwest Pacific. He was not the kind of officer who believed in reports written behind desks. He listened to his captains, and when they told him the torpedoes were useless, he believed them. He demanded proof, not from paperwork, but from physics. In June 1942, Lockwood ordered a test in the cold waters of Frenchman Bay, Australia. He wanted to know the truth about the torpedoes' running depth. Crews set up nets to catch the weapons as they ran. The results were horrifying. Torpedoes set to run at 10 feet were hitting the nets at 25. They were running, on average, 11 feet deeper than their settings. For months, American submarines had been firing beneath their targets. The enemy ships were not escaping because of bad aim. They were escaping because the weapons were faulty. Lockwood sent the results to Washington, demanding an immediate fix. The Bureau of Ordnance denied responsibility, claiming his methods were flawed. The arrogance of the bureaucracy had become as lethal as any Japanese destroyer, but Lockwood refused to give up. He ordered his men to disable the depth control mechanisms, to recalibrate them manually, and to test again. Gradually, the torpedoes began to hit closer to their intended depth. It was a small victory, but far from the end. With the depth issue solved, another nightmare emerged. Torpedoes that now ran true began exploding too soon, sometimes seconds after launch, long before reaching their targets. Others detonated harmlessly beneath ships without causing serious damage. The cause was the magnetic detonator, a marvel of peacetime engineering that could not survive the unpredictable magnetism of the Pacific. It was calibrated for northern latitudes, not for the magnetic chaos of the tropics. In short, it was useless. Reports poured in from patrols across the theatre. Captains described torpedoes exploding miles away from targets, or worse, hitting them squarely and doing nothing. The Bureau continued to deny reality. They insisted that premature explosions were caused by poor firing angles or operator error. But in the cramped steel hulls of the submarines, men began whispering about what they already knew. The Bureau's denial was killing them. In the spring of 1943, Lockwood decided to act again. He had seen enough. The Bureau of Ordnance's experiments in Rhode Island were irrelevant. Their torpedoes had never been tested in real combat conditions. The Admiral began to organize his own tests, this time in the same waters where his men fought and died. He ordered torpedoes fired into the sides of cliffs and into anchored targets. He watched carefully as each one failed or exploded prematurely. Each result added more evidence. Each dud was another nail in the coffin of bureaucratic arrogance. But Lockwood wasn't alone. He had allies. One of them was Charles Swede Momsen, an engineer, inventor, and legend in submarine circles. Momsen had already earned fame for designing the Momsen lung, a breathing device that allowed trapped submariners to escape from sunken boats. He was known for one trait above all. He refused to take no for an answer. When Lockwood needed someone to find the truth about the torpedoes, Momsen was the obvious choice. Working alongside Lockwood was another crucial figure, Commander Art Taylor, the gunnery and torpedo officer for the Pacific Submarine Fleet. Taylor was a meticulous man, part scientist, part sailor. He began coordinating a series of drop tests designed to simulate real impact conditions. On August 31, 1943, on the Hawaiian island of Kahulawe, the first test took place. Sand-filled warheads were hoisted by cranes and dropped from great heights onto steel plates to mimic the speed and force of a torpedo hitting a ship's hull. What they discovered shocked even the most cynical officers. 70% of the contact detonators failed. The problem lay in the design. The firing pin in the contact pistol struck perpendicular to the torpedo's path. When a torpedo hit a ship directly, as submariners had been trained to do, the force bent or jammed the pin, preventing it from triggering the explosive. The perfect 90-degree shot, the one every skipper aimed for, was the worst possible angle for detonation. In essence, American submarines had been taught to fire in the one way most likely to produce a dud. That realization changed everything. It meant that the rules of engagement, the training manuals, and the doctrines of the US Navy were all wrong. The very procedures drilled into young officers for years had been sabotaging them. But acknowledging that meant admitting that the Navy's top scientists and bureaucrats had failed. That they would not do. Lockwood and his men faced a choice: obey the rules and keep losing the war, or break them and save lives. They chose the latter. Quietly, illegally, they began to modify their torpedoes. They removed the magnetic detonators entirely. They adjusted firing angles. They instructed captains to aim for glancing blows, to let torpedoes strike at an angle rather than head-on. It was dangerous, disobedient, and effective. Each patrol brought more success. For the first time, ships began to sink consistently. The illegal modifications were working, yet officially they didn't exist. Reports were falsified to hide the changes. Crews deleted notes from logs. They called it field adjustment, a euphemism for survival. This was not just an engineering fix, it was an act of rebellion, a defiance born out of desperation and courage. These men weren't scientists in laboratories, they were warriors trapped in machines that could kill them at any moment, trying to turn failure into hope. They were fixing the tools their own country had broken. And as the months went on, their quiet defiance began to change the course of the war.